Welcome to this technical presentation on the new features in Revit 2015. My name is Chad Smith, a consulting technical lead here at A2K Technologies. Today we will be covering the new and enhanced features that are specifically relevant to architects and building designers. As a broad overview, these features predominantly cover visualizations, general documentation tools, in particular schedules, as well as some performance improvements. I will cover these features first by way of slides, and then towards the end of the presentation I'll do a live demonstration of a couple of the main features. So let's get into it. With the addition of the new Sketchy Lines feature, you can apply a hand-sketched graphic style to the current view, or define the settings in a view template to apply the style to multiple views for a soft hand drawing look. To improve the appearance of sketchy lines in a view, you can use the Smooth Lines with Anti-Aliasing option. Take note here that this tool has been renamed since the previous version. You now also have the ability to enable anti-aliasing for all views in the project or for selected views. This setting in the Revit options has also changed. The Ray Trace interactive rendering visual style for views has also been enhanced. This now offers faster performance, a higher quality, smoother rendering, improved color accuracy, and improved shadows with backgrounds. With enhanced schedules and material takeoffs, the following parameters can now be included in a wall schedule or material takeoff. These are base constraint, base offset, top constraint, top offset, and unconnected height. In addition to these, you can specify custom text display for the grand totals title in the new custom grand total title field. After working with an active view on a sheet, you can now double-click outside the view to deactivate the view. With an improved duplicate view functionality, when you duplicate a view, the default name for the copy is the view name with copy 1 added to the end. This is now different to the previous functionality, which we used to call the newly duplicated view copy of and then the view name. When you duplicate a view as a dependent, the default name for the view is view name with a dependent 1 added to the end. The copied view has the focus in the project browser, so you can easily rename the view, and the copy of the view is open in the drawing area. When using view references, you can now change the referenced view after the view reference has been created. You can change the view reference in the reference callouts, reference sections, and reference elevations after the reference has been created. You can now specify which assembly code file to use for assigning a uniform code to the assembly code type property of model elements. The file can be stored on a local server or a remote server. The keynoting setting tool is now available on the Annotate tab directly from the Keynote dropdown, rather than from the Tag panel dropdown. The Keynote file can reside on a local server or remote server, and status icons displayed in the Keynoting settings dialog box to indicate whether the Keynote table is loaded or needs to be reloaded. And the view parameter list has been expanded for view title families to include additional shared parameters in those view titles. An Add Parameter button is now enabled, so shared parameters can also be added. Users are now able to turn on and off their hidden lines for an entire view. Now you can show or hide the hidden lines of your geometry independent of what discipline your view is set to. In the view properties, you can use the new Show Hidden Lines parameter to control the display of hidden lines in the current view. You can also define the parameter for the view templates. You are now able to see the hidden lines of openings in walls and floors quite easily. You can now also display all hidden lines automatically in 3D views. You can now delete revisions, and better sketch revision cloud shapes. Deleting a revision removes the revision and all of the revision's associated clouds and tags from the model. You can use the new standard draw tools, such as a line or rectangle, to sketch the revision cloud shape. Pressing the spacebar, you can flip the arc direction in the cloud shape. And you can also specify the minimum arc length for revision clouds in a project on the Sheet Issues Revisions dialog. You can now create schedules that include images to convey graphical information for elements. An image instance property and type image type property have been added to many elements to allow you to associate an image with an element instance or type. These images can be then included in schedules and will display when the schedule is placed on a sheet. The Manage Images dialog has been enhanced to support managing the images in the model. This includes images associated with families and elements. You are now provided with greater precision, handling and recognition of your energy analytical model. The algorithm that automatically creates an energy analytical model directly from Revit building elements and sends it to the Autodesk Green Building Studio web service for analysis has been improved to provide greater analytical surface precision, handling of certain Revit elements, and better recognition of ceiling void spaces. But just take note that the web-based energy analysis is available to subscription customers of Suites editions which contain Autodesk Revit software, and only during the term of their subscription. You can link an IFC file to the current project using the new Link IFC tool. If you later change the IFC file and reload the project updates to reflect the changes. When opening an IFC file, you can specify whether elements join automatically, that is walls to walls or walls to columns. In the Open IFC File dialog, the Auto Join Elements option is turned on by default. Turning this option off provides more control over the results and may provide performance during the import process. In the Import IFC Options dialog, column headers have been revised to improve clarity. The enhancements to improve the quality of linked IFC data results in better visual fidelity and improved performance during the import process. Now multiple Revit, CAD and point cloud links can be added directly in the Manage Links dialog. Use the new Add button to insert a new Revit, CAD or point cloud link directly from the Manage Links, and the file will automatically be placed. The new pinned elements are prevented from being deleted unless you specify. Elements must be unpinned before they can be deleted. You can delete elements by unpinning them and deleting, or deleting through the expanded warning dialog. Instead of permitting the deletion and providing a warning, Revit will now warn you that the element is pinned and instruct you to unpin the element before using delete. You can also delete objects in a non-graphical context, such as deleting from schedules. By default, new family parameters are now added in ascending alphabetical order to the parameter list within the group that you selected when creating the parameter. When creating or modifying a family, you can now control the order of the family parameters in the Family Types dialog. Use the Sorting Order buttons to modify the order by selecting a parameter, and use the Move Up and Move Down buttons to change the order of the parameters within a group. The parameter order is maintained when it's loaded into a project. Improve user learnability by customizing tooltips for Revit family parameters. You can now customize Revit family parameter tooltips to help describe and communicate parameters and their intended use to help improve the overall product learnability. When a user hovers the mouse over a Revit family parameter, the customized tooltip will appear. Now when you move a tagged element or drag the tag head, the tag leader and elbow adjustment behavior is now consistent with that of text leaders. When you move or adjust the tag, the portion of the leader from the element to the elbow is flexible, while the portion from the elbow to the tag remains fixed. Additionally, the instance property elevation at top has been added to isolation foundations, wall foundations, and foundation slabs. Elevation at top specifies the elevation at the highest point or plane of the foundation. You can use this information in tags when documenting a project. There are some new capabilities and features to enable a precise definition and placement of structural framing elements in space. You can align the end of a joined beam to another beam, structural column, or structural wall. You can also reset beam ends that have been previously aligned. Now you can disallow joining behavior to structural framing elements or in as-built conditions. When disjoined, a structural framing element can snap to characteristic points along the geometry of another structural framing element. Shape handles are now available to click and drag the end extensions or cutback of beams and braces in the drawing area. You can use shape handles to directly manipulate framing element geometry and snap ends to other geometry or reference lines. You can quickly change the justification of the physical geometry of a framing element using the Justification Points tool. You can select a new justification direction in the drawing area without adjusting parameter values in the Properties palette. You can also quickly offset the physical geometry of framing elements using the Offset Y and Offset Z justification tools. Fine adjustments are now possible working directly in the drawing area without manually calculating and entering parameter values in the Properties palette. All of these work for both steel and precast elements in Revit. So what we might now do is just jump over to Revit and have a little bit more of a closer look at some of these new features. So starting with the new Sketchy Lines feature. Sketchy Lines isn't necessarily a new visual style that you will find down here on the View control bar, but rather it's found inside the graphic display options. You'll note here in the graphic display options that we have a Sketchy Lines group that we can expand. Simply enable Sketchy Lines and then we can start playing with the jitter or extension. Let's have a look at each one of these options individually before we combine them together. The jitter slider, as you'll see here, enables the lines to be staggered or to be jittered, giving that sort of sketchy look. The amount of jitter can be controlled using the slide scale just here. Let me just turn that back off for the moment, and now let's have a look at the extension. The extension option specifies how far beyond the edges the lines should appear. When we combine the extension and jitter together, you can see there that we can start getting some hand-drawn type sketchy looks appearing on screen. Now it doesn't have to stop there with just the sketchy lines. You'll notice here to start with that the line work is starting to be shown quite rough. There's an option up here for smooth lines with anti-aliasing that if we toggle this on and hit apply, you'll notice there that that sketchy look softens out a little bit further, making it look just a little bit more believable that it was actually hand-drawn. You can then start throwing in some other options, maybe some shadows, to start adding to the effect. Sorry, I'll just come back to that one. I just want to have a look at, here's a view that was prepared earlier on. You can see there that we have the sketchy lines option turned on, putting on some jitter, putting on a small amount of line extension. You'll notice here that we don't always have to do them with a colored view as well. You can see here that we can change it from consistent colors to maybe hidden line. So just playing around with a couple of extra settings here, you can see there that the new sketchy lines feature enables you to generate some results in some fairly interesting ways. It doesn't always have to be a 3D view either. It could be an elevation view, a section, or even a floor plan, such as this one that I have here. So maybe you're doing a simple floor plan concept for a customer. Simply just turn on the sketchy lines, maybe change some element representations to be coarse, and in this view here you can see I've also got a color scheme underlaid in underneath. In addition to that, why not even go for a different font that gives that extra hand-drawn look along with the lines. Turning to another new feature that's been implemented into the 2015 release. Over on the schedule view here that I have for the door schedule, you can see that we have a new column that I've placed in that's called type image. If we just jump back to the floor plan just briefly and select one of these door objects and have a look at its properties, we can see here at an instance level and also at a type level, just here it is, we have the ability to attach an image to the family. You'll notice here inside the type properties that I have a bifold JPEG image attached. This was actually attached inside the family itself. So if we edit the family and have a look at the types dialog box, we can see here that the type image has been attached, and we can browse and add in other images if we choose. So what this means is that, let me just close this file and go back to the project and specifically back to the schedule. Having a look at the fields, you can see here that we have the instance base one, which is image, and the type one that I've already added over to the right hand side. Going and having a look at a sheet view, all right, you can see here that the images that I've attached to those families are now displaying on the sheet view for the door schedule. Just having a look at two ways you may want to use this new feature: simply adding in an image that has been sourced from maybe a manufacturer's website, or alternatively going for something that's a little bit more drafted. I've taken a screenshot of my bifold door from the family and attached it into itself. Now unfortunately at this stage these images cannot be auto-generated, that is to say that they cannot be generated from the family itself. You actually have to capture that image and manually attach it back into the family. And lastly, just having a look at the new family editing improvements. If I select the front door to this building, I'm going to have to do this in a regular 3D view. There we go. Edit that family. Going into the family types dialog box. Okay. The first thing you'll notice here is that we have a couple of extra buttons on the right hand side in order to be able to reorder the parameters inside this group, this dimensions group. So with rail width base parameter selected, we can use the move up option here to move it up or down. You'll also notice when we have a look inside the properties for that parameter that we also have an edit tooltip button down the bottom. So using this we can type in a brief description that describes what that parameter is going to be used for. When we have a look at it back inside the project, selecting that door, having a look at its type properties, we can see here that I have the rail width base, and when I put my cursor over it, the little tooltip pops up in front. So there are many more little features that you can go ahead and find that haven't been presented inside this presentation. I guess it's always fun playing around and experimenting and seeing what else is new. But hopefully the features that I've presented in this session have actually been quite useful, and you'll be able to put them into practice as part of your day-to-day work.